Hello everyone and welcome to Puzzle Buster, Java Challenges Solved. Boy, have I got a challenge for you. The name of today's challenge is String Splicer, and the object of the challenge is, given a text, write a program that will systematically go through and splice in between every character of that text another character of your choosing. That is to say, if you have a word or sentence, this program will go through and insert in between every other character another character of our choice, such as a space or an underscore or a dash or something like that. So if you'd like to take a moment to pause the video and think through how you would write something like this, otherwise, let's think through this together. And so we have a text, and we have no idea how long this text is going to be, and we have a character type of our choosing that we know that we want to insert in between every character of that text. How would you do something like this? Now this is actually something that is very interesting. There is a very simple and elegant solution that's based on a technique called recursion. And recursion is what happens when you have a method, and inside the body of that method you make a call to that very same method itself, and sort of puts itself into a loop. If you imagine holding two mirrors parallel to one another, and that sort of infinite tunnel illusion that happens from doing so, that's figuratively what we're speaking about here. Except the only problem with this is that without something called a base case, that is to say without some sort of statement inside the method to say, hey, this recursion can be finished now, the method will just continue to make calls to itself over and over again, and will run out of memory. We'll have what's called a stack overflow. And so we need to ensure that we have a base case that tells the program, okay, you can stop calling yourself now. And so let's go ahead and jump into Eclipse and see how we would go about writing something like this. And so I have a class that I've called String Splice. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a method called string splice, and I'm going to pass through the text that we want to splice and the character that we want to interweave through that text. And so we'll go ahead and just print out to the system the results of the value of the function called string splice. And we'll write this function in just a moment, and it's going to accept a text and a character. And so we'll do the first text as being hello, and the first character that we want to weave through the text as being an underscore. And what this should look like, if we've done it correctly, is something like that. The next one, we'll make another call to the string splice, and we will pass through the word there, and this one will use dashes, so that if we've done this correctly, it will look like that right there. And just for good measure, we'll do it a third time. And we'll call this one fancy. And for this one, let's see, why don't we just pass through a space? And so this should run and look like this. All right, and you know what? I'm going to do a print line so I get the carriage return and be a little neater on the output. Okay, and so there's the call to the function that we're going to write, and we're going to display the output, the value of that function, which should come out looking like this right here. We're going to display that to the console, to the screen. All right, now to write this function. Now, if you've taken a moment to think about this, if you're trying to wrap your head around this, you're probably going to be surprised how simple and elegant the solution is. So we're going to declare this as a public static function. It's going to return a string, and we'll call it string splice, as we previously mentioned. And we know it's going to accept a string, and we'll call that string the word. And it's also going to accept a character, and we'll call the character C. All right, so first we need to write the base case. And the base case is just going to check to make sure that the length of the word is not 1 or less than 1. Because if it is, then we've run out of word, and it's going to, at that point, just go into an endless repeat. And so we're going to say if word.length is greater than or equal to 1, then we are done, and we're going to return the word as is. The next thing we're going to do is if it hasn't reached the base case, then we're going to invoke the recursion. And so if it hasn't reached the base case, we're going to go ahead and call the method again, except with a little bit of extra functionality. So we're going to return the value of word dot character at the beginning of the word plus the value of that character plus, and here's where we're going to recursively invoke the method again, string splicing, not the word itself, but a substring of the word equal to 1. And we'll of course need to pass through that character one more time because it's expecting it. And so this is essentially it. And so take a minute and kind of look at the code and see exactly what's going on here. We're going to, in the case that the word is greater than 1, we're going to return whatever that word is, the character beginning at 0 plus the value of that character plus splicing or plus doing a substring of that word at the first spot. And so it's going to basically go through and systematically cut that word up and move forward character to character to character, calling itself over and over and over again until it gets to the very last character, which when it passes that last character through will mean that the word or that single character will be equal to 1, in which case it will return the entire word. And it's going to return that word back to the previous call to that method, which will then return that word back to the previous call, which will then return that word back to the previous call again. And once it reaches the very first invocation of the method, it will have rebuilt the word, but with all of the characters inserted in between the letters. So let's go ahead and run this and see if we have this correct. Oh, we have some errors. What are the errors? String splice, string splice. See if we can see what the errors are. I've used double quotes instead of the single quotes to represent the character being passed through. Good thing I caught that. That would have been embarrassing. Okay. Now that looks like it's cleaned up. Let's go ahead and try to run that one more time. All right, and it looks like it worked. We have hello separated by underscores, we have there separated by dashes, and we have the word fancy separated by spaces. And so I would call this puzzle busted. And now, an additional challenge for you at home. What small change in this code could you make that would enable the user input to give the user the choice of what character to pass through to the function? And so go ahead and try that challenge at home if you would. I look forward to seeing everyone back in the next video. Hope that this was informative and entertaining. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.